In the previous video, we saw the software setup required for working with an Angular project. We built an Angular project using the NG or Angular CLI. We made some changes in our application, saw how the whole thing works. And this particular module, I want to show you as what is an Angular component, what is a module, and how do you bootstrap a component, everything from the scratch. So for this, I'm going to use the same project that we used as in the previous video, but I'm going to delete all the things that are generated, especially the app part of it. So I'm going to select all these files here, and if I select and delete, you should see that there will be errors in our project. So if I say view developer and developer tools or JavaScript console, which is Command Shift J, Control Shift J. So this is where you're going to see errors. I can dock this on the right side so we can see the page as well as this. So if I go here and delete these files, you would see that it's going to cause a bunch of errors in a minute because the files don't exist. It's recompiling and it's coming back with saying that, hey, failed to load. We don't even have an app module, and that's kind of that's an error coming because our main.ts, which is the entry point. Now, where is that mentioned as an entry point? In Angular JSON, we saw that the main file is nothing but src.main.ts. If I go to main.ts, you will see that it refers to app module, which just now we deleted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all these things, add an import. So let's say import dot slash app slash, let's say for example, my example app as a module. As you know that it doesn't exist, let's create one here. So I'm going to go to the app, and then I'll say new file called my example app.ts. And if I simply say console log, then I type here, say hello from my example app, save it. Let's go see what happens when we refresh. Let me restart the server, ng-serve. So there is no errors. If I go back to the browser, you'll see that hello from my example app, the output comes. But at this point in time, it's no longer an Angular application because there's no Angular involved. So the only thing that is involved is that your Webpack looks at the main.ts and imports this file, and in that file, all I have got is a console.log. There's no Angular involved here. So this is where we want to create an Angular application. So I'm going to go and create a class. So I'll say class, let's say it's called hello world component, and nothing there. I'm going to give a message. For the timing, I think I'm just going to have a class, but this class becomes a component by adding at component to your class. And note that because this is an Angular project, a lot of Angular support is provided by VS Code, and it's also automatically giving me auto import from Angular core. And when I do that, it comes up. A decorator in TypeScript is always given with a curly bracket and a bunch of options. And the only option that I'm looking at right now is going to be a selector. And since our selector was already an app root in index.html, probably you can see that in index.html we have this app root / app root. I'm going to just use the same selector. Of course, if I make some changes over here, I may have to do the same thing in index.html as well. And one more thing that I want to give here is a template. I can either give a template, which is a hard-coded HTML content here, or I can refer to an external HTML file. So for the time being, I'm going to give template, and I'm going to use this template string, which is going to allow me type multiple lines. So I'm going to type here h1, and then say hello world /h1, and I press enter. Let's type a paragraph, and then I type here a message from Vinod /p, and that's my output for the component. So wherever this component app root / app root is there, I want this particular message to appear. So at this time we have created a class, and the class is a component, but we have to give this to Angular and say that, hey, inject this in this particular location. And to do that, you have to make a component part of a module. And a module is nothing but a class. Let's call it as app module or any name of our choice, my module, for example. But it's just a class, just like how this is a regular class converted into a component using this decorator. We have to use at ng module, once again auto import from that Angular / core. And this is where you say that, hey, we have to bootstrap this particular component. So I'm going to say bootstrap, and I'll say that hello world component. But right now, the hello world component is not part of this module. And in order to say that this is going to be part of the module, we say here declarations. And in the declarations, we're going to say a list of all components that you're going to have here. Part of this module will be listed over here. Whereas Bootstrap is only the one that are going to be used in the index.html. So this is where I say hello world component is one of my component. Now, one minimum requirement here is that the browser support, because ultimately we want Angular to modify the DOM. So the DOM manipulations are done by using a module which is called as a browser module. Okay, so it doesn't appear, I believe, so it didn't automatically come. No problem, we can always import it. Import from, you can say at Angular / browser or platform browser. And there you can see that there is one called a browser module. That is what we want to include in our application. That is come. Now that we have got a component is part of the Angular module called app module. You see there, still there is no output. It's refreshed, but there is no output. That's mainly because we never told. So we created Angular modules. We can create n number of Angular modules, but we never said that use this module and bootstrap that. And this is where we need a function call, and this is the last part of the puzzle. So I say import from at Angular / platform browser dynamic. This provides a function. Let's use that. Platform browser dynamic, that's a function. So we're going to use this function and call this, and that returns an object. And we say that, hey, bootstrap the module called app module. So if I go here and then say, which is the module, so it's called app module. And now if I save this, you should see that we get our component. So you can see that we got hello world message from Vinod. Platform browser dynamic is the one that's doing the job. So this one basically dynamically scans your index.html. Now, why is that index.html looked in? If you look at the angular.json, we said that, hey, this is a file that's supposed to be bootstrapped. So when you say platform browser dynamic .bootstrap module, it's going to take this module and finds out the bootstrap component, and which is a hello world component. Now the hello world component is identified as a tag called app root, and it's going to look in that index.html for this particular app root. If it is found, then this is where it's going to inject. This particular content is going to be placed in the location where app root / app root is there. And that's what is happening right now. So it's, even though we coded with a component first and then made it as a part of a module, but Angular starts the work once this is given. So it's going to look for a module, and that module has a bootstrap component, and that component is this. So the question is, can I have multiple components in an HTML? For example, can I say here, let's go to index.html. Let me add here a app welcome / app welcome. Will it produce any output? As such, there is no errors and there's nothing is happening at this point in time. But can I create another component here and make it part of the same module? And it is possible. For example, I can say here class welcome component, and I'll just say here at component, and I have to give minimum selector and a template. I'll give here a selector is app welcome. That's what we used just now in the index.html here. And then I'll say the template for that is a simple h1 or h3 welcome to Angular 7 training / h3. I save it, I have created a component. It's not going to appear mainly because it's not part of this particular module. So in order to make it part of the module, I have to say that it's a welcome component. Now you see that I have made it as part of this, but in index.html it is there. It doesn't appear here mainly because we have to say that it has to be one of the bootstrap component. And now if I add here welcome component, save it, hopefully I should see a welcome message also. So bootstrap component is the one that is going to be looked in index.html. So if I don't do that over here, and let me get rid of that from the index.html also, now I can still make this component presented to the user by making this component part of the hello world component. So as of now, you can see that it is not included in my output, but I can go to my hello component, and in the hello component, I can always provide here a BR. I don't need a BR also because anyway, this is going to print H3. So I'll say here app-welcome slash app-welcome. So as you can see that now I don't need that to be a part of the bootstrap list here because it's not going to be looked in the index.html, but instead it's going to be part of another component, hello world component. So as soon as I save, right now it is not there. If I save it and if I come back over here, you should see that welcome to Angular 7 training comes up also. So this is how you can create a component, make it part of an ng module. In our case, it's the app module, and then bootstrap that so that the app is actually going to be injected. The components are going to be injected to our index.html. Of course, a lot of things can be refactored over here. For example, it's not a good idea to keep all these classes in one place. It's a good idea to keep this in one JavaScript or TypeScript module, export it, export this one, and here write another module where you import everything and then start using that. So that's what we would be doing essentially. But just to make you understand in a nutshell, basically an ng module is the one that is bootstrapped by Angular. An ng module has all the bunch of components that it refers to, and then it picks up one of the component to be looked in the index.html. That's what it's actually doing.